So one of your big early roles was as a Black Power Ranger, which you auditioned for when you were like, I guess you must have only been 18 or 19, looking at the dates. How did this early experience shape your career going forward?
It gave me a career. That was the start of it. It basically proved to me that dreams do come true. I remember just always wanting to become like an action star, just wanted to do martial arts on film. And forever everyone would tell me, stop wasting your time. Don't do this. Why are you even trying to do that? People like us from Texas, whatever, we don't get to do these things. So get a real career. But I couldn't let it go. I was like, I really want to do this. And I saw an opportunity and there's an audition. I went. Thankfully, I booked it. And that basically kind of like put me in the right direction. It proved to me that, you know what, if you really want something, you really try to go for it, it could happen.
I have a question. So how did it happen? How did you audition? How was the story of
What was the story of auditioning?
Yes.
Well, I was studying Shaolin Kung Fu at the time, and my instructor saw in the newspaper that they were looking for new Power Rangers. And it didn't say if it was stunt people or anything, it just said looking for new Rangers. And there's like basically an open cattle call audition, so thousands of people can show up. Doesn't matter who you are, you can just show up. And they did that not just in Texas, but they did this all over the place. And so I showed up, and there were thousands of people there. And at first, they just brought us all in, and they chose us based on looks. You know, they're like, okay, you can stay, the rest of you go home. And then we had to show off our ability, which you either had to be a martial artist or a gymnast or a dancer. And I was a martial artist, but could also do acrobatics. And so I did some of that, and then they gave me a piece of paper, and they told me, all right, come back in a couple hours, and you're going to have to do some monologue. And so I came back, and I did a monologue, and that was it. They were like, all right, goodbye, thank you. And so I went home, and then I went off and registered to go to college, and I was at college and ready to go. And then I got a phone call that was like, hey, they want you to audition again, do a callback audition in California. I was in Texas at this time. And so I flew out to California and auditioned again, at a series of auditions with various other people that they were trying to see who works together well, or who, pairing us up by, race, and whatever fit their, and what color are we going to be, right? And so, they eventually at the end of that audition, they were like, all right, well, you three are going to be our new Rangers, which was really weird because we were in a group of other people that were auditioning. And we were just sitting there, like, are you three? You're going to be our new Rangers. And everybody else was like, we're like, yeah. It was so weird. It was really weird. It's like, couldn't you just bring us in separately, not do this in front of these people? This is really, really strange. But that was basically what it was like. And then it was just a madhouse then. It's like, all right, guess what? You start work now, and then it was like, wardrobe fittings, and it's like, what are you, like rehearsing like a fight and see if we can do choreography. And then, it just took off and it started going.
So then how did you move into voice acting?
How did I get into voice acting? All right, let's see. Short version is Power Rangers. It's kind of a short version, but on Power Rangers, there's a stunt crew, the Japanese stunt guys, Alpha Stunts. And they wanted to shoot an action film, Koichi Sakamoto. Those guys were like, we want to shoot an action film, and so they cast me as the lead because I could do my own martial arts. The camera they had was Japanese, but the sound equipment wasn't, and so for some reason that did not work together. I'm not sure why, but I had to go in and basically dub myself over this movie. And so as I was dubbing myself, a producer walked in, heard my voice, and said, hey, you got a good hero voice, and then asked me to come audition for some anime. And I auditioned for Trigun, and I booked that role. And that basically opened the doors, and people were like, oh, we heard you in Trigun, will you audition for this? Or we heard you in that, will you audition for that? And then it just became a thing. And it was like the early rise of anime, when anime was starting to become a thing. So I was very fortunate at the time.
Speaking of your voice acting, if my sources are correct, you played, in Pokemon Origins, you played the role of Brock, is that correct?
That is correct.
How did you end up with that role?
I auditioned. Yeah, it was just something, I think it was an audition. I think I auditioned for 2 characters, and that was the one that I booked, yeah.
What was your approach to the character?
I didn't know a whole lot about Pokemon, and so I had to look up as much as I could. And there wasn't a whole lot for my character to do to begin with, so I was in a kind of a safe area. It wasn't about him, he was just there for a little bit, so it wasn't something that I really needed to do too much research on. Typically, if I know that I'm leading a role for something that's been around, I would do a lot of research, or as much as I can, if there's anything out there. Black Clover, for example, I had to look that up once I found out I was going to be doing the voice, and so I was like, I got to find what's been done, who's this character, who's this person, so I can kind of tap into it early, It's how I cheat, I try to do as much research as I can, like Gyu in Demon Slayer, is another one where I started to look up and found out some things that I was like, I didn't want to know that yet. But you get to find out some things, and all right, so I see a direction. So for me as an actor, I'm like, I see where he's going to be later, so that I can kind of figure out how I'm going to get there. The voice may not change, but there might be some things that will change. Like with Ichigo, it was like, well, he didn't know how to control his power at first, but eventually he does. By the end of the 60 episodes or whatnot. And so you build that arc in the voice. If that makes sense.
Okay. You mentioned Demon Slayer. Did you have a role in that movie that came out last year?
Yes, I said 2 words. Gyu he's more action than he is talk. So, because when he shows up, or at least when he's showing up, it's always something like, that didn't take long, and I love it, and I know. I mean, there's of course stuff to come later, but. He didn't say much in the movie. I think it was, is that so? I think that's it. I think that's all I said.